Her secret twins became employees at their billionaire CEO father's empire. Without knowing he was Dad, the conference room door slammed, rattling the glass walls of the 32nd floor. Sparrow Frost stood rigid with fury, her chest rising fast, her mismatched eyes one green, one amber, locked on the man behind the mahogany desk. "You don't get to do this," she said, her voice shaking despite her effort to control it. "You don't get to rewrite years of silence just because it's suddenly convenient." The man rose slowly from his chair. Thaddeus Crane, billionaire CEO, empire builder, the kind of man who bent boardrooms to his will, looked anything but powerful in that moment. His gaze flicked to Sparrow's eyes, and something unreadable crossed his face. Recognition, shock, fear. "I didn't know," he said quietly. Sparrow laughed, sharp and bitter. "Didn't know what?" Silence stretched between them, thick enough to suffocate. Then his eyes shifted just once toward the woman standing near the window. "And I never knew," he continued, his voice barely steady, "that there was more than one of you." From the shadows, Waverly Frost stepped forward. "You made it very clear where family ranked in your life, Thaddeus," she said coolly. "Dead last. I wasn't about to let my children grow up as appointments on your calendar or liabilities to your ambition." At the glass wall overlooking Boston's glittering skyline, Atlas pressed her palm against the window. Below them, the city pulsed with life, oblivious. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes glassy, lips trembling. "All my life," she said softly, without turning around, "I walked past your buildings, studied your work, chased a career shaped by a name I didn't even know was mine." She turned then, tears streaking down her face. "And none of you thought I deserved the truth. 4 people, bound by blood, separated by decades of silence, trapped together in a tower built on secrets. Somewhere far below, millions of lives continued as normal, unaware that 24 years of buried choices were seconds away from detonating. Because the real question wasn't whether this family could be repaired. It was what the truth would destroy first. 3 days earlier, none of them knew. 3 days earlier, one decision, one file changed everything. And if you think you know what you'd do if you discovered your boss was the man who walked away from your life, you don't. This story is just beginning. What would you do if you discovered your boss was your absent father? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe to Cedar Drama so you don't miss what happens next. This family's journey is just beginning. The private laboratory occupied the entire 70th floor of Crane Biosolutions Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space, offering panoramic views of Boston Harbor. But Thaddeus Crane saw none of it. His attention fixed entirely on 2 applications spread across his desk. The office smelled of coffee gone cold and the faint chemical tang that clung to anyone who spent their life in laboratories. Thaddeus had been reviewing fellowship applications for 6 hours straight. 217 packets from the brightest graduate students in the country. All of them brilliant, all of them hungry. None of them particularly memorable until he reached application 215. Sparrow Frost, Biomedical Engineering, Portland State University. The name alone made him pause. Frost, his mind reached back through decades trying to place it. The attached photo showed a young woman with sharp cheekbones and an intense gaze. But it was her eyes that stopped his heart. One green, one amber. Heterochromia iridum. The same rare genetic condition he had. The same condition that affected only 0.6% of the population. Thaddeus picked up his coffee mug with a hand that had started to tremble. He forced himself to read her personal statement. Science is love made visible. My mother taught me that when I was 6 years old, helping her identify plant specimens for her biology courses. She was a single parent working 3 jobs to keep us fed, but she never let us forget that knowledge was the one inheritance that could never be taken away. I pursue biomedical engineering because I believe technology should serve humanity, not profit margins. The prosthetics I design are intended for communities that current medical systems have abandoned. I want to build solutions for the people my mother sacrificed everything to protect. The mug slipped from Thaddeus's fingers. Coffee spread across his desk, soaking into paper, dripping onto the marble floor. He barely noticed. Science is love made visible. Waverly's words. Waverly's exact phrase from 25 years ago when they had met at a graduate research symposium. She had been presenting on accessible biology education. He had been a broke PhD candidate with a revolutionary idea for medication delivery systems and no funding to pursue it. They had talked for 6 hours straight that first night, about science and sacrifice, about using knowledge to bridge inequality, about building something that mattered more than personal gain. 3 months later, they were married in a courthouse with 2 borrowed witnesses. 6 months after that, Waverly was pregnant. And Thaddeus, terrified 26-year-old Thaddeus buried in FDA approval processes and investor meetings, and the weight of knowing his entire future hung on decisions made by people who held his dreams in their indifferent hands. He had said the words that would haunt him for the next 2.5 decades. "I cannot be what you need right now. This company will save millions of lives. That has to come first." Thaddeus dragged his attention back to the present. His hands shook as he reached for the second application. Packet 216, Atlas Frost. Pharmaceutical Chemistry. Portland State University. Another photo. Another young woman with the same sharp bone structure, the same heterochromatic eyes. But where Sparrow's gaze was defiant, Atlas's held something softer. Curiosity, openness, hope. Her personal statement read like poetry. "My twin sister says I romanticize our absent father. She is probably right, but I cannot help imagining that somewhere in his important work, there were moments he thought of us. Wondered what we looked like. Whether we inherited his mind or our mother's heart. I study pharmaceutical chemistry because I want to understand what could be so compelling that a person would choose it over family. My mother never spoke ill of him. She simply said he had important work, so I made his work my work. Perhaps that is pathetic. Or perhaps it is the only way I know how to build a bridge to someone I have never met." Thaddeus stood abruptly. His chair rolled backward and hit the window with a soft thud. 24 years. Waverly had been carrying twins. Twins with his genetic markers. Twins who were now 24 years old, applying to work at the company he had chosen over them. He pulled up the employee database with trembling fingers, searched for any mention of Waverly Frost. Nothing in the system. But that made sense. She would have gone back to her maiden name after the divorce. After he had signed the papers without contest, believing he was setting her free to find someone better. Someone who would choose her. The applications listed Portland State University as their undergraduate institution. He opened a new search window and typed Waverly's name into the faculty directory. Her photo loaded. Older now. Laugh lines around her eyes. Hair shorter than he remembered, touched with silver at the temples. But unmistakably her. Unmistakably the woman he had loved with the desperate intensity of youth and left with the cowardice of fear. Professor Waverly Frost, Department of Biology, specialization in accessible science education and environmental botany. She had done it, built a career, raised children, became exactly the kind of educator she had always dreamed of being, and she had done it all without him. Thaddeus reached for his phone, dialed his head of human resources. The line connected after 2 rings. Margot. Thaddeus kept his voice steady through sheer force of will. Applications 215 and 216. Sparrow and Atlas Frost. We want them both hired immediately. Full fellowship packages. Start date as soon as possible. Sir, Margot's confusion was evident. We have not completed the interview process yet. There are protocol considerations, and I am aware of the protocols. Thaddeus interrupted. Consider this a direct executive hire. Send the offers tonight. He ended the call before she could ask the questions he could not answer. Then he dialed a second number. A private investigator he kept on retainer for corporate security matters. I need you to find someone. A woman named Waverly Frost. Lives in Portland, Oregon. Works at Portland State. I need to know everything. Her address. Her routine. Whether she ever married again. Whether she. His voice broke. Whether she ever told our children about me. He sat alone in his laboratory as night fell over Boston. The city lights flickered on below, millions of lives interconnected in ways they would never fully understand. Somewhere in Portland, his daughters were celebrating. They had no idea their applications had been seen by the one person in the world who recognized their genetic signature. Who saw Waverly's phrases in their writing. Who understood exactly what it meant that they both pursued careers in medicine and chemistry. They were his children, and they had no idea he existed. Thaddeus pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk. Inside lay a wooden box he had not opened in 15 years. Inside that box were the last pieces of evidence that his marriage had ever existed. Divorce papers signed without argument, wedding photos from a courthouse ceremony, and a note written in Waverly's elegant handwriting on the back of a hospital intake form. We do not need your guilt. We needed you. The plural had not registered at the time. He had assumed the royal we, a rhetorical flourish, but Waverly never used unnecessary words. We needed you, not I needed you. We, because there had been 2 of them. 2 babies who became children, who became brilliant young scientists applying to work at the company their father had chosen instead of them. Thaddeus closed the box. made a decision that would detonate every careful wall he had built between his past and present. He would meet his daughters. He would tell them the truth, and he would pray that 24 years of absence could somehow, impossibly, be forgiven. The moment Thaddeus realizes he's been given a second chance will change everything. But will his daughters ever forgive him? Comment your prediction below and subscribe to Cedar Drama. You won't believe what their mother has been hiding. Across the country in a modest Portland apartment, Sparrow Frost was throwing clothes into a suitcase with barely contained excitement. Can you believe it, Atlas? Both of us. Full fellowships at Crane Biosolutions. Do you have any idea how competitive those positions are? Atlas sat cross-legged on her bed, acceptance letter clutched in both hands. Her heterochromatic eyes scanned the text for the 100th time as if the words might change. It feels too perfect, like the universe is aligning or something cosmic like that. Sparrow laughed, tossing a sweater in Atlas's direction. The universe does not care about our career prospects. We earned this. 4 years of brutal coursework, research that pushed boundaries, publications in actual journals. We worked our asses off. I know, Atlas caught the sweater absently. But Mom has been so weird since we told her. She is proud of us. She dropped a coffee mug, Sparrow, shattered it on the kitchen floor. When I said the company name, she went completely white. Atlas stood and walked to their shared desk, pulled open a drawer and removed a folder they had assembled over years. Inside were printed articles about Crane Biosolutions, about its revolutionary affordable insulin, its HIV medication protocols that transform treatment in developing nations. And in the very back, a single photo from the company's early days. A grainy image of a young man standing in what looked like a garage laboratory. Do you think she knew him? Atlas held up the photo. The founder, Thaddeus Crane. Sparrow barely glanced at it. Mom was in graduate school in Boston 25 years ago. Same time Crane was starting the company. Statistically, there is a chance they crossed paths. Why does it matter? Because she has never acted like this before. Atlas set the photo down carefully. When we got into graduate school, she cried happy tears. Research award, she threw us a party. But this, she looked terrified, Sparrow. You are reading too much into it. Our mother is allowed to have complicated feelings about her daughters moving across the country. But Atlas could not shake the feeling that something deeper was unfolding, something their mother had kept buried for longer than they had been alive. In Portland, Waverly Frost stood in her kitchen staring at the shattered remains of her favorite mug. Coffee pooled on the tile floor mixing with ceramic shards. Her hands still trembled. Crane Biosolutions. Of all the companies in the country, of all the fellowship programs they could have applied to, her brilliant, ambitious, determined daughters had chosen the one place Waverly had prayed they would never go. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers, scrolled through her contacts to a number she had not called in 24 years. A number she had kept despite every instinct screaming to delete it. Her thumb hovered over Thaddeus Crane's name. What would she even say? Congratulations on accidentally hiring your children. Thanks for the fellowship offers, but they are actually your daughters, and this whole situation is my fault because I never told you they existed. Waverly set the phone down, grabbed paper towels to clean up the spill, tried to breathe through the panic constricting her chest. She had made a choice 2 decades ago. A choice rooted in love and terror and the absolute certainty that Thaddeus had already decided what mattered most. When she discovered the pregnancy was twins, she had sat in her obstetrician's office and made calculations. One child might have been an accident, a complication he could frame as derailing his plans. But twins were undeniable. Twins were a commitment that would reshape everything. And Thaddeus had already told her in every way but words that he could not be reshaped. His company was going to save millions of lives. She was going to save too, so she had chosen for both of them. She never put his name on the birth certificates. Never filed for child support. Never reached out except for that one return note years later when guilt had nearly broken her. She had told Sparrow and Atlas age-appropriate truths. That their father had important work. That he did not know about them. That sometimes people make impossible choices and we have to respect that even when it hurts. Sparrow had grown angry, built walls around the hurt and threw herself into academic excellence, as if achievement could fill the father-shaped hole in her identity. Atlas had grown wistful, romanticized the absent parent into something noble, used the mystery as fuel to understand the work that could matter more than family. Both of them brilliant, both of them driven. Both of them about to walk into their father's building without knowing they were coming home. Waverly picked up her phone again. This time she dialed. The line rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Hello. Mom. Atlas sounded happy. Did you see our official start date? 2 weeks. We fly out next Monday to find an apartment. Waverly closed her eyes. I need to tell you something, both of you. Is Sparrow there? Yeah, she is packing. Hold on. Rustling sounds. Then Sparrow's voice joining the call. What is wrong? You sound stressed. Waverly sat down at her kitchen table, the same table where she had helped her daughters with homework, where they had celebrated acceptances and mourned rejections, where she had built a life that was about to implode. The company you are joining. Crane Biosolutions. I knew the founder. Alongitimiagu. Silence on the other end. Then Atlas's breathless question. How well did you know him? We were married. Briefly. 25 years ago. The silence stretched longer. Waverly could hear her daughters breathing. Could feel their minds racing through implications. When you say 25 years ago, Sparrow's voice had gone very quiet. Mom. Issei. Yes. Waverly's voice broke on the word. Thaddeus Crane is your father. And I never told him about you. The call lasted another 47 minutes. There was crying, accusations, disbelief, questions Waverly had no good answers for. Why did you keep it secret? Because I was terrified and 24 and alone. Did you ever try to tell him? Once. He returned my letter unopened. Does he know now? I do not know. If he reviewed your applications personally, if he saw your names, your photos, he would recognize the signs. What signs? Your eyes? Both of you have heterochromia. It is genetic. Rare. He would know. The call ended with Sparrow saying they needed time to process. Atlas said nothing at all. Just disconnected, quietly leaving Waverly alone with the detonation of secrets she had carried for nearly a quarter century. In Boston, Thaddeus received the private investigator's report at 11:43 p.m. It contained everything he had requested and several things he had not known to ask for. Subject: Waverly Ann Frost. Age 49. Never remarried. No subsequent children. Lives at a modest 2-bedroom home in southeast Portland. Drives a 12-year-old sedan. Earns $68,000 annually as an associate professor. No debt beyond a small mortgage. No criminal record. Active in community science education. Volunteers at local environmental nonprofits. And at the bottom, a note that made his heart stop. Birth certificates obtained. Twins Sparrow Bellamy Frost and Atlas Morgan Frost born April 14th. Mother listed as Waverly Ann Frost. Father listed as unknown. Benjamin. His mother's name. Waverly had given one of their daughters his mother's name. Thaddeus stood and walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the cold glass. 70 floors below, Boston slept unaware that the man who had revolutionized their access to affordable medication was falling apart. He had missed everything. First words, first steps, first days of school, skin knees and science fairs and graduation ceremonies. 24 years of moments that could never be reclaimed. And in 2 weeks, his daughters would walk into his building, shake hands with colleagues who had no idea they were greeting the boss's children, sit in orientations and training sessions while the truth sat like a bomb waiting for someone to acknowledge it. Thaddeus made his second critical decision of the night. He would not hide. He would not send intermediaries or craft careful corporate statements. He would meet Sparrow and Atlas himself, tell them the truth face to face. And then he would live with whatever came next. Their mother just dropped the biggest bombshell. But does Thaddeus deserve forgiveness after 24 years? Let me know in the comments. Like this video if you're hooked, and subscribe to Cedar Drama. The twins are about to meet their father and it's going to be explosive. The private jet touched down in Boston on a gray Monday morning. Sparrow and Atlas descended the stairs into cold March wind that cut through their West Coast clothing. A car service took them to their new apartment, a furnished 1-bedroom in Cambridge they would share until they could afford separate places. The space smelled of fresh paint and possibility. They unpacked in silence. The revelation about their father had created a strange tension between them. Atlas wanted to understand. Sparrow wanted to rage. Neither knew how to process that the absent father who had shaped their entire lives was about to become their boss. Tuesday morning arrived with bright sun and temperatures that felt Arctic compared to Portland. They dressed in professional clothes that felt like costumes. Business casual for a business they were only beginning to understand. The Crane Biosolutions campus occupied 4 city blocks in Boston's Innovation District. Glass and steel towers connected by skywalks. Landscaped courtyards with benches and art installations. Everything gleamed with the kind of wealth that came from revolutionizing industries. Sparrow and Atlas stood at the main entrance staring up at the central tower. Somewhere in that building, the man who shared their DNA was likely sitting in an office, making decisions that would impact millions of lives, living the future he had chosen over being their father. Ready? Sparrow's voice was steadier than she felt. No. But Atlas grabbed her sister's hand anyway. Let us do this. They walked through the rotating doors into a lobby that looked like an art gallery. The receptionist checked their names against a list and directed them to the 14th floor orientation center. The elevator rose smoothly. Soft music played. Everything about this place whispered money and power and the kind of success that required singular focus. The doors opened onto a floor designed for new employee processing. Signs directed them to conference room, where 30 other fellowship recipients were already gathering. Sparrow and Atlas found seats near the back, introduced themselves to neighbors, tried to appear normal while their entire worlds tilted on an axis they had not known existed. At precisely 9 a.m., a woman in a sharp suit walked to the front of the room. Good morning, everyone. I am Margot Chen, Senior VP of Human Resources. Welcome to Crane Biosolutions. You represent the top 1% of applicants from across the country. You are here because you demonstrated not just brilliance but vision. The kind of innovative thinking that aligns with our founder's core mission. Affordable medication for all. Science in service of humanity. Knowledge as a human right. She advanced her presentation slides showing the company's history, from garage startup to global empire. From Thaddeus Crane's first patent for extended release capsules to current trials on cancer treatments that could change oncology forever. Mr. Crane himself rarely appears at public events. Margot clicked to a slide showing an empty podium. He is intensely private, but he reviews every fellowship application personally. If you are in this room, he chose you specifically. Atlas felt ice slide down her spine. He knew. He had to know. The presentation continued through company values, division structures, research protocols. Sparrow absorbed it all with the systematic precision that made her an exceptional engineer. Atlas sketched in the margins of her notebook, a habit she could not break even in professional settings. 90 minutes in, Margot paused. We have a special guest today. Our founder has broken his tradition of absence to meet this year's cohort personally. The room stirred with excited whispers. Please welcome Thaddeus Crane. The door at the back of the conference room opened, and Sparrow and Atlas's entire world detonated. The man who walked in was tall, lean, wore a dark suit that probably cost more than their combined monthly fellowship stipend. His hair was silver at the temples, dark everywhere else. He moved with the careful precision of someone who measured every action. But it was his eyes that destroyed them. One green, one amber, heterochromia iridum. He stopped walking when he saw them. His gaze locked on Sparrow first, then Atlas. Something flickered across his face. Recognition. Pain. Wonder. The room fell silent, sensing something unspoken. Thaddeus cleared his throat. Thank you all for being here. His voice was deeper than Atlas had imagined. Rougher. For 23 years I have built this company on a single principle. That brilliant mind should serve humanity, not profit margins. You are here because you share that vision. He moved down the center aisle as he spoke, eyes sweeping across the new fellows. But his gaze kept returning to the back row, to the two young women who had his eyes and his bone structure and his late mother's name. I want you to know that I read every application myself. Some of you wrote about changing paradigms. Some about serving underserved communities. Some about building bridges between science and the people who need it most. He stopped walking directly in front of Sparrow and Atlas. And some of you wrote things that changed me. That reminded me why I started this work in the first place. His eyes locked with Sparrow's. She stared back, refusing to look away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. After orientation, I would like to meet with Sparrow and Atlas Frost privately. Please come to the executive floor, 70th level. Then he walked out, leaving 30 fellows whispering and 2 daughters drowning in the reality that their father knew exactly who they were. The rest of orientation passed in a blur. Division assignments, levy tool, safety protocols. Sparrow heard none of it. Atlas sketched increasingly abstract shapes until her page was more shadow than light. At noon, Margot approached them. Mr. Crane is ready for you. They rode the elevator in silence. Each floor that passed felt like a countdown to detonation. The 70th floor was different from the rest of the building, quieter, more refined. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the entire city. An assistant led them to a corner office where Thaddeus stood with his back to the door, looking out at Boston spread below him like a kingdom he had conquered. "Mr. Crane," the assistant announced, "the Frost twins are here." He turned. "Thank you, Margot. Please hold all calls." The door closed, leaving them alone. For a long moment, no one spoke. They simply stared at each other, father and daughters separated by 24 years, and a chasm of choices that could never be unmade. Thaddeus broke first. "Did your mother tell you?" "Last week." Sparrow's voice came out cold. "When we told her we had been hired. And before that, did you know? That you existed?" "Sure." Atlas's voice shook. "That you were our father?" "No. Mom just said he had important work and could not be there." The words landed like blows. Thaddeus flinched. "I did not know about you. Either of you. Your mother was pregnant when I left, but she never told me it was twins. Never told me she had carried to term. Because you made it very clear you had more important priorities." Sparrow stood abruptly. "You chose this." She gestured at the office, the building, the empire beyond. "You chose board meetings and patents and profits over having a family. It was not about profit. Then what was it about?" "Survival." Thaddeus met her gaze. "I was 26 years old. Broke. Weeks away from FDA approval that would either make or destroy everything I had built. I thought I was doing what was right. That your mother deserved better than being tied to someone who had nothing to offer but risk and uncertainty. So you decided for her." Atlas spoke quietly. "You decided what she could handle, what we deserved. You played God with our lives and then disappeared." Yes. The admission fell heavy. "I did. And I have regretted it every single day for 24 years. Regret does not give us back our childhood." Sparrow's voice rose. "Regret does not erase the times we needed a father and had no one. Regret does not undo the fact that you built this empire while Mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I sent money, every month for 2 years. And she returned every check. Because we did not need your guilt. We needed you." The sentence hung between them. Thaddeus had read those exact words written in Waverly's handwriting. Hearing them spoken by his daughter broke something in him. "You are right." He sat down slowly. "You are absolutely right. I made a choice rooted in cowardice and fear. I prioritized work over family. I missed everything that mattered. And no amount of success or philanthropy or revolutionary medication will ever make up for that." He pulled out 2 folders from his desk. "These are your fellowship files, your applications, your research proposals. I read them before I knew who you were. And even then I was stunned by your brilliance." He slid the folders across the desk. "Sparrow, your prosthetics design for low-resource communities is revolutionary. Atlas, your synthesis protocols could reduce production costs by 40%, making treatments accessible to millions. You both wrote about science serving humanity, about knowledge as a tool for equity." He met their eyes. "You are everything I hoped to build with this company. And you achieved it without me. That is your mother's legacy, her sacrifices, her values. You are proof that she was the better parent, the better person." The words seemed to deflate Sparrow's rage slightly. Atlas had tears tracking down her face. "Why are you telling us this?" Atlas asked. "Why reveal yourself now?" "Because hiding would be one more cowardice added to 24 years' worth." Thaddeus stood and walked to the window. "Because you deserve the truth. Because I deserve nothing, but I am asking anyway for a chance to know you. Not as employees. As my daughters." Sparrow laughed bitterly. "You think it works like that? You think you can claim us after 2 decades of absence?" "No, I do not think I can claim anything. But I am here. I am telling you the truth, and I am asking if there is any possible future where we might build something from these ruins." The office fell silent except for the distant hum of the city below. "I need to call Mom." Atlas's voice broke. "I need to talk to her about all of this. Of course. And I need time." Sparrow wrapped her arms around herself. "I cannot process this in one conversation. Take all the time you need." Thaddeus returned to his desk, wrote something on 2 business cards and handed them over. "My private number. Call any time. Or never. That is your choice to make." They left his office without another word, rode the elevator down in silence, walked out of the building into cold March air that felt like a slap after the climate-controlled tower. Atlas pulled out her phone immediately. "Mom!" Her voice cracked. "We met him. The first meeting between father and daughters was heartbreaking. Can this family ever be whole? Tell me in the comments if you could forgive him. Smash that subscribe button for Cedar Drama because the next story will reveal a grandmother they never knew existed, and she's dying." The call lasted 17 minutes. Waverly's voice came through the speaker raw with emotion Atlas had never heard from her mother before. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I should have told you years ago. I should have given you the choice. Sparrow grabbed the phone from Atlas's hand. You are damn right you should have. Her anger found a new target. How could you keep this from us? How could you let us apply to his company, get hired by him without warning us? I panicked. Waverly's voice trembled. When you told me the company name, I froze. I meant to tell you that night, but I could not find the words. And then it was the next day and you were already packing and You had 24 years to find the words, Mom. I know. Did you ever love him? The question caught everyone off guard. Atlas took the phone back gently. Mom, did you love him? Waverly's silence stretched long enough that Atlas thought the call had dropped. 10, more than I have ever loved anyone, before or since. Your father was brilliant and passionate, and saw the world as something that could be fixed if you just cared enough. We were going to change everything together. And then I got pregnant, and he got scared and everything fell apart. She took a shuddering breath. I told myself I was protecting you from rejection. That it was better to have no father than one who resented your existence. But Atlas, Sparrow, the truth is I was also protecting myself. I could not bear the idea of him choosing his work over us explicitly, so I made the choice for him. Sparrow closed her eyes. We are all cowards then. We come from a long line of people too afraid to have hard conversations. Maybe. Waverly's voice gained some strength. Or maybe we were all just young and terrified and doing our best with impossible situations. Your father was not wrong that his company would save lives. It has. Millions of people have access to affordable medication because of Crane Biosolutions. I cannot regret that even if I regret everything else. So what do we do now? Atlas asked. He wants a relationship, wants to know us. What do you want? I do not know. Atlas looked at her twin. Part of me has always wanted to know him. But now that he is real and standing in front of me, I just feel angry. Which does not make sense because I am supposed to be the romantic one who imagined him as some tragic hero. You are allowed to feel everything, Waverly said gently. Anger and curiosity and hurt and hope all at once. There is no right way to process this. Did he really not know about us? Sparrow's voice had lost some of its sharp edge, not about the twins. Waverly confirmed. I found out it was 2 babies after he left. After he made it clear he could not handle fatherhood. I sat in that ultrasound appointment alone seeing both of your heartbeats, and I made a choice. Maybe the wrong choice. Probably the wrong choice. But it was rooted in love even if it was also rooted in fear. The conversation wound down with promises to talk more later. To take things slowly. To remember that they were all learning how to navigate this impossible situation together. Sparrow and Atlas walked back to their apartment in silence. The city felt different now. Every Crane Biosolutions building they passed, and there were several scattered throughout Boston, carried new weight. Their father had built this. His vision made tangible in glass and steel. That night neither twin could sleep. They lay in their respective beds in the small apartment staring at ceilings and processing earthquakes. Around 2 a.m. Atlas spoke into the darkness. Are you awake? Yeah. What are you thinking about? Atlas was quiet for a moment. I keep wondering what our lives would have been like if he had stayed. Would we have grown up in Boston? Gone to private schools? Had everything handed to us on silver platters? Or would the resentment have poisoned everything? Sparrow rolled onto her side facing her sister's bed. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe he would have stayed out of obligation and we would have spent our whole lives knowing we derailed his dreams. We will never know. No, we will not. More silence. Then Sparrow added. He has our eyes. Did you notice? Same heterochromia. Same green and amber. I noticed. Atlas smiled in the dark. I spent my whole life thinking I was unique. Turns out I am just genetically predictable. You are not predictable. Sparrow's voice softened. You are brilliant and kind, and you see the world in ways I never could. That is not genetics. That is you. You are getting sentimental. Blame the emotional exhaustion. They fell silent again. Outside their window, Boston hummed with late-night traffic and distant sirens. Somewhere in this city, their father was likely also awake, also processing, also wondering if the ruins of their family could be rebuilt into something whole. The next morning arrived too quickly. Both twins dragged themselves to the Crane Biosolutions campus running on coffee and determination. They had been assigned to different divisions, which meant different lab spaces and different immediate supervisors. Sparrow reported to the prosthetics development wing on the 23rd floor. The lab was state-of-the-art. 3D printers capable of microscopic precision, materials testing equipment that cost more than most houses. A team of 12 engineers, all brilliant, all driven, all unaware that their newest member was the boss's secret daughter. Her supervisor was a woman named Dr. Renata Voss. Sharp eyes, Austrian accent, 20 years of experience in biomedical engineering. Sparrow Frost. Dr. Voss shook her hand firmly. I read your thesis on adaptive prosthetics for developing regions. Impressive work. We are going to push you here. Expect long hours and high standards. I would expect nothing less. Good. You start on the pediatric limb project. We are designing growth adaptive prosthetics for children in low resource areas. The challenge is creating something durable enough to last but adjustable enough to accommodate rapid growth without requiring constant replacement. Sparrow felt genuine excitement cut through her emotional exhaustion. This was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed of doing. Several floors above, Atlas was being introduced to her team in the pharmaceutical synthesis division. Her supervisor, Dr. Marcus Webb, was younger than she expected. Early 30s, with the intense energy of someone who lived and breathed chemical innovation. Your proposal on cost reduction synthesis protocols caught Mr. Crane's attention personally. Dr. Webb pulled up her application on his tablet. He sent a memo saying to give you access to the HIV medication project. That is unusual for a first-year fellow. Atlas felt her stomach tighten. Thaddeus was already intervening, already creating opportunities that would make her colleagues suspicious. I do not want special treatment. Then prove you deserve the regular kind. Doctor, Webb smiled. Show me your synthesis skills match your theoretical knowledge and we will get along fine. The morning dissolved into work. Atlas lost herself in chemical equations and reaction cascades. For a few blessed hours she could forget that her entire identity had been upended. Here she was, just a scientist solving problems. Nothing more complicated than molecular bonds and reaction yields. Lunchtime arrived. Atlas made her way to the campus cafeteria, a massive space with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough food options to satisfy any dietary requirement. She grabbed a salad and looked for an empty table. Mind if I join you? She turned to find Sparrow holding a tray laden with pasta and garlic bread. Please, Atlas gestured to the empty seat. How was your morning? Incredible. Sparrow's eyes lit up despite her exhaustion. I am working on pediatric prosthetics. Actual meaningful work for kids who need it. This is everything I wanted. Atlas smiled. I am on the HIV medication synthesis team. It feels surreal. A week ago we were students. Now we are working on projects that will impact millions of lives. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Sparrow spoke quietly. He is watching us. I can feel it. Atlas followed her sister's gaze across the cafeteria. There in a corner sat Thaddeus Crane. He was not looking at them directly, but Atlas sensed his awareness. The way his shoulders angled slightly in their direction, the careful way he was not looking. Should we go talk to him? I do not know. Sparrow stabbed at her pasta. Part of me wants to. Part of me wants to throw this garlic bread at his head. Atlas laughed despite everything. Let us save the garlic bread assault for when we have more evidence. Evidence of what? Whether he actually wants to be our father or just wants to assuage his guilt. They finished lunch without approaching Thaddeus. But as they left the cafeteria, Atlas glanced back. He was watching them now. No pretense. Just open longing and regret written across his face. That evening, both twins received identical text messages from an unknown number. I know I have no right to ask, but would you be willing to have dinner with me? Just to talk. No pressure. You can pick the place and bring your mother if that would make you more comfortable. I understand if the answer is no. The number was Thaddeus's private line, the one he had given them on business cards they had not thrown away. Sparrow showed Atlas the message. What do you think? Atlas stared at her phone. I think we should go. Not because we owe him anything, but because we owe ourselves answers. We have spent our entire lives wondering about him. Now we have the chance to actually understand who he is. And if he is just a selfish bastard trying to ease his conscience, then we know. And we can move forward with that information. Sparrow nodded slowly. Okay, but we do not bring Mom. Not yet. This is between us and him. Atlas typed a response. Friday night, 7 p.m. You pick the place. Somewhere public. The reply came within seconds. Thank you. I will send details tomorrow. The week crawled by. Both twins threw themselves into work, trying not to think about the approaching dinner. Sparrow made progress on the pediatric prosthetics, calibrating adaptive joint mechanisms. Atlas synthesized 3 new compound variations that showed promise in early testing. They avoided the cafeteria, avoided any situation where they might run into Thaddeus unexpectedly. They needed the dinner to happen on their terms. Controlled environment, planned conversation. Friday arrived cold and clear. The restaurant Thaddeus chose was called Ember. Small, intimate, known for excellent food and private booths. Expensive but not ostentatious. The kind of place where serious conversations happened. Sparrow and Atlas arrived 15 minutes early, scoped out the location, identified exits, chose a booth with clear sightlines. Old habits from growing up with a mother who taught them to always have an escape plan. Thaddeus arrived exactly at 7. He wore dark jeans and a sweater, an attempted casual that did not quite mask the tension in his shoulders. He spotted them immediately and walked over with the careful movements of someone approaching a wild animal. "Thank you for coming." He slid into the booth across from them. "I was not sure you would. We almost did not." Sparrow's voice was neutral. "But we decided we want answers more than we want to avoid discomfort. Fair. What do you want to know?" A waiter appeared and took drink orders. Gave them a moment to settle. When he left, Atlas spoke first. "Tell us about Mom. What was she like when you knew her?" Thaddeus's expression softened. "Brilliant. Passionate about making science accessible to everyone regardless of background or income. She could explain complex concepts in ways that made them beautiful rather than intimidating. She saw knowledge as a human right, not a privilege." He smiled at some private memory. "We met at a graduate symposium. She was presenting on educational equity in STEM fields. I was trying to get funding for medication delivery research. We argued for 3 hours about whether innovation should be driven by market needs or humanitarian needs. She won the argument. What did you love about her?" "Everything." Thaddeus did not hesitate. "Her mind, her integrity, the way she never compromised her values even when it cost her, the way she laughed, how she collected plant specimens on every walk and told me their scientific names like poetry. Then why did you leave?" The question cut through the warmth. Thaddeus's expression closed slightly. "Because I was 26 and terrified. We had been married 6 months when she told me she was pregnant. I was weeks away from the FDA decision that would determine if my company lived or died. I had investors threatening to pull funding, patent lawyers circling. Everything I had worked for hung by a thread. That does not answer the question. I left because I convinced myself I had to choose, family or company, love or legacy. I could not see a path where I got both. So I chose the thing that felt more certain, the thing I could control through hard work and determination." He met their eyes. "I chose wrong. I know that now. But at 26, drowning in debt and fear, I genuinely believed I was doing what was best for everyone. That Waverly would be better off without me dragging her down. Did you try to contact her after you left?" "Twice. Once 3 months after I left when the FDA approval came through. I sent a letter. She returned it unopened. Then again 2 years later when the company started turning profit. I sent money. She returned every check with a note telling me we did not need my guilt. The plural we," Atlas said softly. "She was telling you about us and you did not catch it." Thaddeus closed his eyes. "I know. I have read that note 1,000 times since I found your applications. I cannot believe I missed it. Cannot believe I was so self-absorbed I did not ask more questions." Food arrived. They ate in silence for a while, processing. The meal was excellent, but none of them tasted much of it. Sparrow set down her fork. "Tell us about your mother." "Our grandmother." Thaddeus looked up surprised. "Bellamy? You gave Atlas her name as a middle name. Mom must have told you about her." "She did." Thaddeus pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo. "This is her. Taken about 6 months ago." The image showed an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile. She sat in what looked like a hospital room, but her posture remained dignified. "She has stage 4 pancreatic cancer, maybe 6 months left. I visit her every Sunday." He hesitated, then added, "She has been begging me to find you for years. When I told her I had discovered your applications, she cried, said she had prayed to live long enough to meet her grandchildren." Atlas felt tears prick her eyes. "Can we meet her? You want to? She is our grandmother. We have never had extended family, just Mom and each other. If she wants to meet us, she wants nothing more." Thaddeus's voice roughened, "But I did not want to ask. Did not want to pressure you into. We are asking." Sparrow interrupted. "When can we see her?" "Tomorrow if you want. I visit on Saturdays now since Sundays have become difficult for her. She is at Massachusetts General, Palliative Care Wing. Then we will be there." "What time?" 2 p.m. I will text you the room number." The dinner continued with slightly less tension. They asked about his childhood. He asked about theirs. Careful questions, careful answers, building a foundation of basic knowledge about each other's lives. Thaddeus told them about growing up poor in rural Pennsylvania. Mother working 3 jobs after his father died when Thaddeus was 8. Scholarships and student loans and sleeping in his car during graduate school while working on his first patents. I built Crane Bio Solutions because I watched my mother ration insulin she could not afford. Watched neighbors die from treatable conditions because medication cost more than their rent. I wanted to fix that, to make medicine accessible. He looked at both of them. But in focusing so hard on saving strangers, I abandoned my own family. That irony is not lost on me. Atlas reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. A small gesture, but the first voluntary physical contact they had shared. You cannot change the past, but you are here now. That has to count for something, does it? We are still deciding. Sparrow's honesty was not unkind. You have 24 years of absence to account for. Dinner and a hospital visit do not erase that, but they are a start. The meal ended with tentative plans to meet at the hospital the next day. Thaddeus paid the bill, walked them to their rideshare, stood on the sidewalk looking lost as they drove away. In the car, Atlas turned to her sister. "What do you think?" "I think he is genuine." Sparrow stared out the window. "I think he really does regret leaving, but I also think regret is easy when you are a billionaire with every comfort. The real question is whether he would trade any of it. If someone offered him a choice right now, the company or us, what would he pick? I do not know. But maybe we are asking the wrong question. Maybe it is not about choosing. Maybe it is about whether he can figure out how to make space for both." That night they called Waverly and told her about the dinner, about the invitation to meet Bellamy. "Are you okay with this, Mom?" Atlas asked. "US building a relationship with him?" Waverly was quiet for a long moment. "I spent 24 years keeping you separate from him. I do not get to control this anymore. You are adults. You deserve to make your own choices about who you let into your lives. But are you okay with it? Honestly, I do not know. Part of me wants him to suffer the way I suffered, but a bigger part wants you to have what I could not give you, a complete family, extended relatives, the chance to know where you come from." She paused. "Just promise me you will protect your hearts. Do not let him in too fast. Make him earn it. We promise." The twins are about to meet their dying grandmother. This will change everything. Can broken families truly heal? Share your thoughts below. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to Cedar Drama and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss what happens next in this emotional journey. Saturday afternoon, Sparrow and Atlas stood outside room 417 at Massachusetts General Hospital. Through the small window, they could see Thaddeus sitting beside a hospital bed holding an elderly woman's hand. Atlas knocked softly. Thaddeus looked up and his expression transformed. He stood and opened the door. "Come in, please." They entered the room hesitantly. Bellamy Crane was smaller than her photo suggested. Frail. But her eyes when they landed on the twins were sharp and bright, and immediately wet with tears. "Oh, my stars." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You are real. You are here." Atlas moved to the bedside first, pulled up a chair. "Hi, I am Atlas. This is Sparrow. I know who you are." Bellamy reached out a trembling hand and Atlas took it. "I have been praying to meet you for so long." Sparrow joined them on the other side of the bed. Up close she could see the family resemblance. Same bone structure as Thaddeus, same determined set to the jaw. "Thaddeus tells me you have been sick, dying actually." Bellamy's bluntness was surprising. 6 months if I am lucky, 3 if I am not. But I made it long enough to meet you, so I am calling it a win. She looked between them with hungry eyes. "Tell me everything. Your childhoods, your favorite subjects. Whether you got your grandmother's terrible singing voice or your grandfather's mathematical mind." They talked for over an hour. Bellamy asked endless questions and listened to every answer like it was precious. She told stories about Thaddeus as a child, how he had built his first invention at age 9 trying to help her work fewer hours, how he had won every science fair from elementary through high school, how he had called her crying the night Waverly left saying he had made the biggest mistake of his life. I told him to go after her. Bellamy's gaze shifted to her son, begged him to fight for his family, but he was so stubborn. Said if she wanted to leave, he would not trap her. I was giving her a choice. Thaddeus said quietly, "You were being a coward." Bellamy shot back with surprising strength. "You were afraid she would reject you, so you rejected her first. self-sabotage dressed up as nobility. The honesty was jarring, but also refreshing. This woman who was dying had no patience for pretense. She turned back to the twins. Your father is many things. Brilliant, driven, loyal to a fault once he commits, but he is also terrified of vulnerability, of needing people. When his father died, I watched him shut down emotionally, decided depending on anyone was too dangerous. She squeezed Atlas's hand. He has been alone for 24 years, built an empire but lived in isolation. You two have the chance to help him remember how to be human, if you want to. No obligation, but I hope you will try. Why? Sparrow asked. Why do you care if we forgive him? Because I am dying, and I want to know my son will not be alone when I am gone. She smiled. And because you are my granddaughters. I have a genetic investment in your well-being, plus you both seem like you could knock some sense into him, which frankly he desperately needs. The visit ended with Bellamy tired but happy. She made them promise to come back, to bring photos of their childhood, to tell her stories about Waverly. As they prepared to leave, she grabbed Thaddeus's arm. Do not screw this up. You have been given a miracle, a second chance most people never get. If you waste it, I will haunt you from beyond the grave. I will not waste it. Good. Now go. I need a nap, and you need to figure out how to be a father. Outside the hospital room, Thaddeus turned to the twins. Thank you for coming, for being kind to her. It means everything. She is remarkable, Atlas said. I can see where you get your intensity and your stubbornness, Sparrow added, but she was almost smiling. They parted ways with plans to meet again the following week. As Sparrow and Atlas rode the subway back to their apartment, they sat in comfortable silence, processing everything. I like her, Atlas finally said. Bellamy. She does not let him get away with anything. She is dying. Sparrow's voice was soft. We just met our grandmother and she is dying. I know. That is not fair. No, it is not. They spent the next few weeks falling into a rhythm. Work consumed their days. Both excelled in their respective divisions. Sparrow's prosthetics designs impressed even the most skeptical senior engineers. Atlas's synthesis modifications showed promising results in preliminary testing. They visited Bellamy twice more that week, brought photos of their childhood as promised. Waverly came to one visit which created a strange tableau. The ex-wife and the dying mother-in-law meeting for the first time in 24 years. Bellamy looked at Waverly with sharp assessment. You did a remarkable job with them. They are kind and brilliant and grounded. That came from you, Waverly smiled. They got their intelligence from their father. And their stubbornness from both of us, apparently. The best traits. Bellamy reached for Waverly's hand. I am sorry for what my son put you through, for the choice he made that forced you to make impossible choices of your own. We were all doing our best with what we knew, perhaps, but I still wish it had been different. Wish I could have known them as babies, watched them grow. She looked at the twins. I have missed so much, but I am grateful for what I have. These last few weeks, getting to see who you became. Her health declined rapidly after that. By the end of the second week, she was sleeping more than she was awake. Thaddeus practically moved into the hospital. The twins visited every day after work, sometimes sitting in silence, sometimes reading to her, sometimes just being present. Waverly returned to Portland but called daily for updates. 3 weeks after their first meeting, Bellamy Crane slipped away peacefully. It was a Tuesday afternoon, gray skies and cold rain. Thaddeus held one hand. Sparrow held the other. Atlas stood at the foot of the bed with tears streaming down her face. She opened her eyes one last time, looked at each of them. My beautiful family. Her voice was barely audible. I am so glad I got to see this. Got to know you are together. Rest now, Mom. Thaddeus's voice broke. We will be okay. Promise me. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. Promise me you will not waste this. That you will choose them every day. I promise. She smiled, then closed her eyes and was gone. Bellamy's final words will haunt Thaddeus forever. But will he keep his promise? If this chapter made you cry, you're not alone. Drop a comment sharing your thoughts and subscribe to Cedar Drama. The funeral brings unexpected healing. The funeral was small. Bellamy had requested no fuss. Just family and a few close friends. They gathered at a cemetery outside Boston where Bellamy would be buried next to her husband. Thaddeus delivered a eulogy that was raw and honest. Talked about his mother's sacrifices, her wisdom, her final gift of pushing him to reconcile with his children. She told me once that regret was the most expensive currency in the world, that you could spend your whole life trying to buy back moments you wasted. He looked at the twins. She made sure I did not waste the time I had left. made sure I fought for what mattered. Atlas spoke next, sharing stories from their brief time together. How Bellamy had made them promise to teach their own children about her. How she had laughed at their childhood photos and cried over the years she missed. Sparrow read a poem she had written, about grandmothers as bridges between generations, about love that transcends time, about families that assemble themselves from broken pieces. Waverly attended, standing slightly apart but present. When the service ended, she approached Thaddeus. "She was proud of you, at the end. The way you showed up for the girls. I learned from the best, and the second best." Thaddeus looked at her. "You both taught me what love looks like. Mom through her sacrifice. You through yours. I just wish I had learned sooner. We cannot change the past. No, but we can honor it by doing better now." The reception was held at Thaddeus's home, a sprawling brownstone in Beacon Hill that felt too big and too quiet for one person. The twins saw their father's life reflected in minimalist furniture and walls covered with patents and awards. A life built entirely around work. "This is where you live?" Atlas walked through the space. "It is beautiful, but it feels lonely." "It has been," Thaddeus admitted, "for a very long time." Over the next few weeks, a rhythm established itself. Sunday dinners became tradition. Sometimes at Thaddeus's place, where he cooked elaborate meals with mixed success. The first time he attempted his mother's lasagna recipe, he burned it so badly they had to order pizza. But the twins appreciated the effort. Sometimes they met at the twins' apartment, where they ordered takeout and played board games. Thaddeus was ruthlessly competitive at Scrabble. Sparrow was unbeatable at chess. Atlas kept trying to play Monopoly cooperatively, which defeated the entire point, but made everyone laugh. Waverly visited monthly. The dynamic between her and Thaddeus remained complex. Not romantic, but not quite just co-parents either. Something more nuanced. Battle-scarred allies raising extraordinary children. One evening, about 2 months after Bellamy's death, Dr. Voss pulled Sparrow aside at work. "I need to address something. Word has spread about your connection to Mr. Crane. Some colleagues are questioning whether your assignments are merit-based." Sparrow felt her stomach drop. "What do you think?" "I think your work speaks for itself, Dr. Voss pulled up project files. "But I also think we need to be strategic. I am submitting your prosthetics design to an external review board. Independent evaluation. No company connection. If they approve it for trials, no one can question your credentials. Thank you. Do not thank me. Just keep doing exceptional work." Atlas faced similar challenges. Whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Pointed questions about whether her synthesis protocols were really her own work. Dr. Webb called her into his office one afternoon. "I want you to present your research at the International Pharmaceutical Conference next month. Alone. No mention of Crane Biosolutions in your introduction. Just you and your science. That is a huge opportunity. You have earned it, and you need to claim it independent of your last name." Both twins threw themselves into their work with renewed determination. Sparrow's external review came back with glowing recommendations. Her prosthetics design was approved for clinical trials in Kenya and Guatemala. Atlas's conference presentation was met with a standing ovation. 3 competing pharmaceutical companies tried to recruit her on the spot. She politely declined all offers. Thaddeus watched from the audience, heart swelling with pride he had no right to feel. After the presentation, he found her in the lobby. "You were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." Atlas smiled. "I was terrified, but also exhilarated. This is what I have always wanted, to have my work evaluated on its own merit. You have that now." No one in that room was thinking about me. They were thinking about you and your revolutionary synthesis protocols. That night at dinner, the whole family celebrated. Waverly had flown in for the conference. They gathered at Thaddeus's house with takeout and champagne. Sparrow raised her glass. "To my brilliant sister, who proved that talent transcends nepotism accusations. To both of you," Thaddeus added. "You have both exceeded every expectation, built careers that matter, and you did it through your own hard work and dedication. We had good teachers." Atlas looked at Waverly. "Mom taught us that knowledge is a gift to be shared, that science should serve humanity, not egos." She looked at Thaddeus. "And you taught us, even in your absence, that big dreams require sacrifice. We just chose to sacrifice differently." The evening dissolved into laughter and stories. They talked about Bellamy, about how proud she would have been, about the strange journey that had brought them all together. As they cleaned up, Sparrow spoke quietly to Thaddeus. "I have been thinking about forgiveness, what it means, whether it is even possible after so much time. And I think maybe forgiveness is not about erasing the past. It is about deciding the past does not get to write the future. She met his eyes. I am still angry sometimes, still hurt, but I am also grateful for these dinners, for getting to know you, for having a father even if the timeline is not what it should have been. Thaddeus felt tears prick his eyes. That is more than I deserve, probably. But we are giving it to you anyway. Sparrow is learning to forgive, but can this family truly move forward? Comment below if you think forgiveness is possible after 24 years. Like this video and subscribe to Cedar Drama. The next storyline brings a scandal that threatens to destroy everything they've built. Monday morning brought chaos. Sparrow arrived at work to find colleagues whispering and staring. Her phone buzzed with messages from Atlas. Have you seen the news? Sparrow pulled up her browser. The headline made her stomach drop. Billionaire CEO's secret daughters. Nepotism scandal rocks Crane Biosolutions. The article was vicious. Photos of them leaving restaurants with Thaddeus. Images from Bellamy's funeral. Speculation about backroom deals and purchased positions. The piece quoted anonymous employees claiming the twins received preferential treatment, that their research was actually done by senior scientists, that their promotions were bought not earned. Sparrow's hand shook as she read. Everything they had worked for, every achievement, reduced to corruption and nepotism. Atlas called. This is character assassination. It is lies. Sparrow's voice was cold with rage. Every word of it. But will anyone believe that? Dr. Voss appeared at Sparrow's desk. Conference room. Now, the executive team wants to address this. The meeting was tense. Thaddeus sat at the head of the table looking like he had aged 10 years overnight. The twins sat together. The PR team presented damage control options. We can issue a statement denying the allegations. That makes us look defensive. Someone else countered. We can ignore it. Let it blow over. It will not blow over. Thaddeus spoke for the first time, not without intervention. He looked at the twins. I want to propose something. A press conference. Full transparency. We tell the entire story on our terms. That will make it bigger. The PR director protested. Right now it is just tabloid fodder. A press conference makes it legitimate news. It is already legitimate news. Atlas said quietly. Our colleagues believe it. Our competitors are using it. Silence looks like confirmation. What do you want to do? Thaddeus asked them directly. Sparrow and Atlas exchanged glances. We tell the truth, Sparrow said. All of it. Your choice to leave. Mom's choice to hide us. Our reunion. Everything. That will be painful. For all of you. We are already in pain. Atlas met his eyes. At least this way we control the narrative. Thaddeus nodded slowly. Then we do a press conference. Thursday. That gives us 3 days to prepare. I need to call Mom. Atlas pulled out her phone. The call to Waverly was difficult. She was horrified by the article, angry at the invasion of privacy, but ultimately in agreement. We tell the truth. Her voice was firm. I am done hiding. Done letting fear dictate our choices. She flew to Boston the next day. Wednesday was spent in preparation, coordinating statements, anticipating questions, deciding what to share and what to keep private. Thursday afternoon they walked into a room packed with journalists. Cameras flashed. Questions shouted before anyone reached the podium. Thaddeus spoke first. His statement was raw and honest. He took full responsibility for abandoning his family, explained the cowardice and fear that drove his choices, made it clear the twins were hired on merit before he knew their identity. Waverly spoke next. She acknowledged her role in keeping the secret, explained her reasoning without making excuses, made it clear her daughters had earned every achievement through their own brilliance. Then Sparrow approached the microphone. I am Sparrow Frost. 3 months ago I learned my boss was my biological father. I was hired based on research credentials. My prosthetics designs have been independently reviewed and approved for international trials. My work speaks for itself regardless of whose DNA I share. She paused. I am angry about the years we lost. I am working through complicated feelings about both my parents, but I am also here doing work I believe in, work that will help children in developing nations access adaptive prosthetics. That will not change because of tabloid speculation. Atlas spoke last. I am Atlas Frost. My synthesis protocols have been presented at international conferences, peer-reviewed, adopted by multiple production lines. I earned my position through hard work and innovation. She looked directly at the cameras. Our family is complicated. We are learning to navigate relationships that should have existed for 24 years. But we are doing it with honesty, with transparency, with commitment to the truth even when it is uncomfortable. The questions came fast and brutal. How can you prove you were not given special treatment? My external review board evaluation is public record, Sparrow answered. My trials were approved by independent scientists who had no knowledge of my connection to this company. Do you plan to sue for back child support? No. Waverly was firm. That was never the point. How does it feel working for the father who abandoned you? Complex, Atlas said honestly. But people are more than their worst choices. We are trying to see the whole person. The conference lasted 90 minutes. When it ended, all four of them were exhausted but also relieved. The truth was out. Messy and complicated and undeniably human. The response was mixed. Some media outlets praised their honesty. Others continued to speculate. But something had shifted. The narrative was no longer just scandal. It was a human story about second chances and complicated forgiveness. They told the truth even though it hurt. But will honesty be enough to save their reputations? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. Subscribe to Cedar Drama and turn on notifications. The next story shows whether this family can survive the aftermath. The week after the press conference was difficult. Both twins faced continued scrutiny at work, but they also found unexpected support. Dr. Voss made a point of publicly praising Sparrow's work in team meetings. Dr. Webb did the same for Atlas. Colleagues who had been distant began approaching them with their own stories of complicated families. One researcher told Atlas about being raised by a single mother after her father left. Another shared his experience reconnecting with an estranged parent. We are all carrying something, a senior scientist told Sparrow. Your burden just happens to be more public than most. 6 weeks after the press conference, Sparrow's prosthetics began clinical trials. She flew to Kenya to oversee the initial fittings. Watching children receive adaptive limbs that would grow with them was the most profound experience of her career. A 6-year-old girl named Amara took her first steps with a prosthetic leg. Her mother wept. Sparrow wept. The entire medical team wept. Her phone buzzed with a text from Thaddeus, watching the live feed from the office. You are changing the world. So proud of you. Another from Atlas. My brilliant sister. This is everything we dreamed of. And one from Waverly. My baby girl saving lives. I always knew you would. Atlas published breakthrough research on cost reduction synthesis. Her protocols would make cancer treatment accessible to millions more patients. The pharmaceutical industry pushed back, but Crane Biosolutions had the resources to fight. Thaddeus called her into his office. I want to show you something. He pulled up projections. Your research will make medication accessible to an estimated 12 million additional patients over the next 5 years. His voice roughened. You did that. Your mind, your dedication. You are everything I hoped this company would be. Atlas hugged him. These embraces came easier now after months of practice. I learned from you. The vision was always yours. The execution was yours. And I am so damn proud. 3 months after the press conference, they gathered at Bellamy's grave. The harsh Boston winter had given way to spring. They planted a tree in her memory, a Japanese maple that would turn brilliant red each autumn. Each took turns with the shovel, adding soil around the roots. Thaddeus spoke about what he had learned. Family is not biology or obligation. It is showing up every day, even when it is hard. Mom taught me that at the end. You all have been teaching me that every day since. He had restructured his entire life, hired a COO to handle daily operations, started leaving the office at reasonable hours. Never missed Sunday dinner. Waverly talked about letting go of control. Fear makes us small, makes us try to manage outcomes we cannot control. Love makes us brave enough to risk everything on possibility. She and Thaddeus had built an unexpected friendship. They talked weekly, consulted each other, sometimes met for coffee. The romantic love was gone, but something deeper remained. Sparrow addressed forgiveness. Forgiveness is choosing connection over being right, choosing to build a future rather than weaponize the past. She had worked through her anger in therapy, learned to separate the scared 26-year-old who left from the man trying desperately to make amends now. Atlas concluded with hope. We all did our best with what we knew. Now we know better, and knowing better we can do better. They stood together as the sun set, 4 people bound by blood and choice, by mistakes and redemptions, by the daily decision to love imperfect people imperfectly. This family planted roots at Bellamy's grave, but can they truly grow together? Comment your thoughts below. If this story has touched your heart, smash that subscribe button for Cedar Drama. The next storyline reveals where they are 5 years later, and you won't believe the transformation. 5 years later. Sparrow stood in a laboratory in Guatemala watching a teenager fit himself with an adaptive prosthetic. The device would adjust as he grew, would last years instead of months, would cost a fraction of traditional prosthetics. Her phone buzzed with messages. From Thaddeus, watching the documentary cruise footage. You have helped over 10,000 children. 10,000. From Atlas, my brilliant sister changing the world one innovation at a time. From Waverly, so proud I cannot find words big enough. Atlas published her 15th peer-reviewed paper. This one detailed modifications that reduced HIV medication costs by 70%. Millions more people could now access treatment. She had won awards, been invited to advisory boards, built a reputation entirely separate from her father's name. When people introduced her now, they said the pharmaceutical innovator, not Crane's daughter. Thaddeus had stepped back from daily operations completely. He focused on strategic philanthropy and family. The brownstone that once felt empty now hosted weekly dinners, hosted holidays, hosted the messy, beautiful chaos of family life. He never remarried. Some loves cannot be recaptured, but he built a life rich with connection, with purpose beyond profit. Waverly continued teaching, continued making science accessible. She and Thaddeus had coffee every week when she visited Boston. They talked about the twins, about their own younger selves, about the impossible choices fear makes us think we have to make. One Sunday evening they all gathered around Thaddeus's dining table. The table was scarred now from years of family dinners, wine stains and knife marks. Evidence of life actually lived. Sparrow raised her glass. I want to propose a toast to broken families that learn to rebuild, to parents who screw up and keep trying, to grandmothers who give good advice even when dying, to my sister who has more faith in humanity than any of us deserve. She looked around the table. 5 years ago I was drowning in rage. 6 months before that I did not know my father existed. Today I am grateful, not for the time we lost but for the time we have, for proving that some broken things really can be mended. Atlas added her glass. To choosing connection over correctness. To forgiveness as daily practice, not destination. Waverly joined them. To second chances and the courage to take them. Thaddeus completed the circle. To the family I lost and found. To showing up even when it terrifies you. To all of you for letting me try. For letting me be your father even though I had no right to ask. They drank together. Laughed together. Told stories about Bellamy who would have loved seeing this. This family assembled from ruins. Held together by choice and commitment, and the daily decision to show up. Later Atlas spoke quietly to her father. I am glad we found you. Even though it was complicated and hard and sometimes still hurts. I am glad. Thaddeus felt familiar tears. I am glad too. Gladder than I have words for. Sparrow overheard. You are both getting sentimental again. And you are smiling, Atlas pointed out, which means you are feeling it too. Maybe. Sparrow aloud. Maybe I am grateful for this strange, broken, beautiful family we built. They ended up in a group hug. The four of them holding each other. Holding space for all the hurt and hope. All the years lost and found. All the ways people can fail each other and still choose to try again. This is not a fairy tale ending. There were still hard days. Still therapy sessions. Still moments when old wounds ached. But it was real. It was honest. It was four people who chose each other despite everything that should have kept them apart. The twins continued changing the world. Thaddeus continued showing up. Waverly continued teaching. And together they proved that some mistakes can be redeemed. That some broken things become more beautiful for having been shattered and carefully reassembled. If you are struggling with complicated family dynamics, if you are wondering whether forgiveness is possible, if you are trying to build bridges across years of silence, remember this. It is never too late to tell the truth. Never too late to show up. Never too late to choose love over fear. Show up. Tell the truth. Choose connection. Everything else will follow. This family's journey from broken to whole proves that redemption is possible. What's your biggest takeaway from their story? Drop it in the comments below. If this story moved you, subscribe to Cedar Drama for more powerful family stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to heal. And remember, your story isn't over either. The next chapter is still being written. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Until then, choose love, choose forgiveness, choose family.